Hello, my name's Scott Brown. You may know me and my wife Kathy from previous years at Camp Alta, so I'm happy to be here again this year, even though it's video, Zoom, and not in reality, but this is what we have to deal with, so we'll try and make the best of it. I want to talk a little bit about tonight. The theme for the camp is thirst. So I wanted to share some thoughts about that and kind of share an experience I had thirsting for something. Before I even start, I should probably read John chapter 4, verses 11 through 14, which is kind of the ultimate biblical passage about thirst. And it goes like this. He said, "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered her, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I don't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." Well, obviously, she didn't quite get the full context of what he was saying, but she knew she wanted it. And that's kind of, we know we thirst for all kinds of things. People thirst for power and influence and money. And there's an old saying, is the man who has nothing but money is the poorest of all. So I think that's a little bit of truth to that. Those things, power and money and influence, I don't think that's really God's plan to just give us those things because we want them. We may get them, and there are plenty of examples of people who had great riches and power. David had incredible power, and Solomon had incredible riches, and they had those things for a purpose. They didn't just have them because they wanted them, and we're not going to get them just because we want them. And basically, we need to prioritize what our desires are and seek after them. I think there are 4 kind of categories of things that people desire that kind of encompass everything. They are peace, justice, love, and forgiveness. And if you can achieve all of those, you have really accomplished something in your life. And the thing about each of those things is they all are perfected in Jesus Christ's death on the cross. Without Jesus Christ, you're not going to fully experience peace or justice or love or forgiveness. You may get close. Our society may manage to give us some of that, but perfectly, you'll never make it. So what I want to tell you about is an experience I had a couple years ago where I desperately was thirsting for some peace. I was a wreck. The story is, every year, my wife and I go on a bike ride with some friends from church. And this particular year, we were going to go on a 10-day bicycle ride across Alaska. And my job was to be the advance man to go to Anchorage ahead of the rest of the group and buy a large Dodge van from a guy I'd never met before, and then rent equipment and buy enough food for 10 or 12 people for 10 days and get it all packed in the van, and then drive 500 miles across Alaska down to Haines, Alaska, where we would meet the rest of the group who were coming up on the ferry. So the first 2 nights before we even left, we had to get ready. We had to box up our bicycles. We get prepared to fly. And I didn't get much sleep those 2 nights. And I was pretty hectically racing around. Then we flew to Alaska, had a wild day in Anchorage doing all our errands, had a bad night's sleep in a cheap hotel that night, and then got up the next morning and started driving. We probably drove 300 miles, spent the night in a campground inside of a large barbed wire electric fenced area to keep the grizzly bears out. And side note to that, if you ever touch the anti-grizzly bear electric fence, it will nearly stop your heart. I don't advise it. We then drove the rest of the way down to Haines, met the group. I was exhausted. I was even more exhausted. I was just thrashed. Had a fairly decent night's sleep and started the trip the next morning. It was a bad day. I was in a bad mood. I didn't feel good. I was tired. I didn't feel like I was appreciated. It was just crummy. And we got to the first campsite, and I was really tired, really done. I just crawled in my sleeping bag in the tent all by myself early. And pretty soon I just started coming apart. I was having a full-blown panic attack. I was crying. I was hyperventilating. My pulse rate was pounding. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. I wanted to get out of this whole mess somehow. I just had it up to my ears. I was done, and I was stuck, and I just didn't know what to do, and just kept getting worse and worse. And the side note of that is I will never disparage anyone who has panic attacks again as long as I live. They are not a joke, and you can't make them go away just because you want them to. You can't tell them to stop. They don't stop. They'll drive you to your knees. Anyway, that's where I was. I was on my knees, figuratively speaking. And somehow, in the process of all this, I got the idea. My only hope was to pray as I breathed. As I exhaled, I would say, exhale fear, and then inhale Jesus. And I did that over and over and over again for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. I'm not sure. I kind of lost track of time. But I kept doing that. And then towards the end of that, all of a sudden, I wasn't lying in a sleeping bag anymore. I was standing, and Jesus was standing right in front of me. And we were looking eye to eye, nose to nose. He was right there in my face. And you might think he would give me a big hug and tell me everything was going to be fine. And that's not what he did. He grabbed me by the shirt. He yanked me forward into his face, and he said, "Stop it. Stop it. I am in control. I am in charge. You don't have to worry. I have everything. It's not your responsibility to make everything work. So just stop it." And I just all of a sudden just fell back, and I had this peace. I just had this overwhelming peace, and I was able to go to sleep and wake up the next morning, felt refreshed, was able to tell people about what had happened. And I was still tired. It had been a long several days, but the whole trip turned around from that point. We had a great time. We rode the rest of the way without any issues or problems. And when we got done, I'm still amazed. The amazing thing is I have that experience to rely on. Whenever, I remember that to this forever. I will remember it. And it has the power to lift me over and through things that happen just in my daily life. There's, you get issues in your life that kind of are obstacles, and to this ability to give it to Jesus is incredibly powerful and helpful. So I want to just leave you with that we can leave our problems with Christ, and that gives us peace. Christ has forgiveness. Christ has accomplished justice for everyone. All the bad things that happen in our lives, there is justice, and Christ has accomplished it, and he has forgiveness for us for all the things that we need forgiveness for. So I can't express too much that Christ is the answer. Christ on the cross transcends all the things that go on in our lives, and that's what we need to cling to. And that's what this experience with this bike trip, that just reinforced that to me just amazingly. So I want to just leave you with that. Have a great time. Sorry we can't be all there together, but maybe next year. Thanks. Bye.